Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we're diving into something pretty amazing that's happening in cities all over the world. People are turning their own backyards into productive fish farms. So let's start with a big question, one that affects all of us as our world gets more and more urban. As millions of people move into cities, especially in rapidly growing regions like sub-Saharan Africa, the demand for fresh, healthy protein, like fish, is just exploding. And the big challenge is, our old ways of getting food to people are really starting to feel the strain. And that really gets us to the heart of the matter, what we're calling the urban food challenge. There's this growing disconnect, this gap between where we live and where our fresh food actually comes from. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, why not just build fish farms inside the city? The thing is, traditional fish farming, or aquaculture, just isn't designed for a city. For starters, it needs a ton of land, and that's super expensive and hard to find in a crowded urban area. It also uses huge amounts of water, and maybe worst of all, it creates a lot of wastewater or effluent discharge, which can end up polluting local rivers and lakes. It's just not a good match. And this isn't just an abstract problem. It has very real consequences. Let's take Nigeria as an example. The average person there eats just under 10 kilograms of fish a year. The world average? Almost double that. Now, that's not just a number on a chart. It points to a serious protein deficit that can lead to health problems like malnutrition, especially for women and kids.
But what if we could rethink the farm? What if it didn't need a huge sprawling pond? What if it could fit in a tank? Well, there's a really innovative small-scale solution that's doing just that, bringing the farm right into the heart of the city.
And this is it right here, the tarpaulin tank system. Now, it looks pretty simple, but don't let that fool you. This is the key piece of tech that's making small-scale urban fish farming a reality. These tanks are tough, you can move them around, and they're incredibly affordable. Basically, they let you set up a controlled fish farm in a tiny amount of space. So, what makes these tanks such a perfect fit for the city? Well, first off, they're brilliant at optimizing space. You can literally tuck one into a backyard. They're also incredibly water efficient, which is a huge deal in any urban area. Plus, not only can they be profitable, but because they're portable, a farmer can easily add more tanks as their business grows, or even pack up and move the whole operation if they have to. And the results? They're really impressive. We're not just talking about a few fish for the family. In one project, they were able to pull 1.6 tons of African catfish out of a single large tank in just one 4 to 5 month growing cycle. That right there proves this is a real commercially viable business. Okay, so now let's get into the science that makes all of this tick. And honestly, it all begins and ends with the most critical ingredient of all, clean water. It is, without a doubt, the foundation of any successful fish farm. Getting this balance right is absolutely non-negotiable. You can think of it as a 3-part harmony for keeping catfish healthy. First, the pH has to be in that perfect range, between 7.5 and 8.5. Then you've got dissolved oxygen. That's basically how much air is available for the fish to breathe in the water. You need to keep that high. And finally, you have ammonia. This stuff comes from fish waste, it's super toxic to them, so you have to keep those levels incredibly low. So, the big question is, how on earth do you manage all of those variables so precisely inside one small enclosed tank? Well, you do it with a smart water system. And the technology behind it is called a recirculating aquaculture system, or just RAS for short. The whole idea is simple but brilliant. Instead of constantly using fresh water and dumping the old stuff, you create a closed loop where the water is continuously cleaned, treated, and then sent right back to the fish. That's the secret to its water efficiency. Now, when you look at a diagram of one of these systems, I know, it can seem pretty complicated. You've got water flowing from the fish tank through all these different filters. Some of them remove the solid waste. Others use good bacteria, that's the biofiltration part, to turn that toxic ammonia into something harmless. Then they add oxygen back into the water before it goes back to the fish. But here's the really cool part. You can take that complex concept and build it with simple everyday materials. This is a photo of a real system from a project in Lagos, Nigeria. And you can see how they've just used these simple blue barrels to create the different filtration stages. It's the same exact science, just made accessible and affordable. So we've established the tech is pretty smart. But can you actually make money doing this? Let's get into the real-world economics, because it's not just about the technology. It's about profit, power, and people. So, success really starts with getting the numbers right from day one. Specifically, how many fish you put in the tank. One study found that for these backyard systems, 500 fish per cubic meter was the magic number. If you try to cram too many in there, you get stressed out fish, disease, and terrible water quality. Too few, and you're just not making as much money as you could be. Getting that density right is absolutely crucial. Now, this is where the business side of things gets really fascinating. It turns out the profitability of these little farms can completely flip, depending on one thing: labor. A study looked at a small system and found that if you had to pay someone to run the farm for you, you'd actually lose about $7 a month. But if the farm was run by the family, treating their work as an investment, it suddenly turned a profit of $34 a month. But it's not all easy. There are some major challenges, and maybe the biggest one, especially in places like sub-Saharan Africa, is unreliable electricity. Just look at this chart. That blue line shows the power you can get from the grid. See how sporadic and unreliable it is? But the orange line shows what the water pumps actually need to run consistently to keep the fish alive. That massive gap means farmers often have to spend a lot of extra money on things like solar power just to make sure their fish survive. So when you put it all together, you realize that success here isn't just about buying a tank. It really boils down to mastering what some farmers call the three vanguards. First, you have to be obsessed with clean water. Second, you have to stick to that proper stocking density. And third, you absolutely need the right training and knowledge to manage the whole system, knowing exactly how to feed the fish, how to spot disease, and how to keep all the equipment running smoothly. And all of this leaves us with a final thought. We've seen the massive challenge of trying to feed our growing cities, but we've also seen a potential solution. That's small, it's efficient, and it's sustainable. With the right technology, the right training, and a bit of that entrepreneurial spirit, a whole new kind of urban farming is definitely within our reach. So the question is, could the future of seafood actually be growing in a backyard near you?